One of the trickier parts of this repair is probably this. It's just getting the SD card reader connected, because as you can see, it doesn't really line up necessarily with the pad that's on here. So if you don't fill up to this, I'd probably have someone else do it. This is a Nintendo Switch that the customer said is overheating while they play games. I do not have this game to test it, but they said after about 20-30 minutes they get a message here saying that it's overheating, and it then shuts down. I tried playing a different game. I don't have a bunch of Switch games, and basically I couldn't duplicate the results that they were getting, but we're going to assume that there is a problem with it cooling down. The fan does appear to be spinning. You can feel the air coming out here from the top. So let's go ahead and take this apart and see what's going on the inside. So I'm going to flip this over, make sure we don't have an SD card here, and I've already removed the game card from the slot here. We're going to have 4 tri-point screws that need to come out, so you'll need one of these. We're also going to have a Phillips screw right here underneath the door, or the kickstand for the micro SD card. So make sure you get that one. On the side rails, you're just going to have to take out the center screw. Don't worry about the rest of them. This is the only one that needs to come out on both sides. And then we're going to have a couple screws, most of the time, down here next to the charge port. One here up on the top next to this vent. Now on this one, the screw does not seem to go anywhere. So I've been twisting it and nothing happens. So we're not going to worry about that one. It's probably broken off on the inside. As for these two, basically all 3 of these are not magnetic. So when you take them out, they're not going to stick to your screwdriver. So you want to make sure those don't go flying across the room. And from here, flip it over and we can just carefully lift the back panel. And this should all lift out. You might have to maneuver it just a bit. This come apart, and as you can see, the one that our top screw is supposed to go into, there should be a tab like these two at the top. That one's missing. Not a big deal. This is pretty common for the Switch. On the back, we're going to have 7 metal screws that need to come out. These are also Phillips, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. All the same size, by the way. After you get these out, the easiest way to remove the SD card reader is just to lift it from the bottom and then pull it straight up. That's going to disconnect from this connector here. Now when we go to put this back together, you have to be very, very careful about this. It is easy to damage that connector on the motherboard. So I will show you that installation under the microscope. But at this point, you can remove this metal shield from the back. And what you'll see immediately is that we have some thermal material right here on this heat pipe that makes contact with this metal shield. As of today, I've never seen a Nintendo Switch have issues due to degraded thermal paste. I'm not saying that won't be the case in the future. Anything is possible, of course, but typically this stuff lasts quite a while. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and power this up and pop a game in here so we can just kind of observe and see if we find any heat building up on the inside. And I want to make sure that the fan is actually spinning. So we'll let this run for a bit until it warms up. Okay, I had to pause the video for a minute to let this thing warm up, and I noticed something interesting. You can see that the fan is spinning, but it's also making a very strange noise. I'll see if I can get the microphone close enough to pick this up. I don't know if that picked up or not, but basically there's a buzzing noise coming from this fan, and it actually kind of looks like it lags every once in a while, so I think we might just have an issue with the fan not operating properly. I'm going to go ahead and shut this off. Okay, so probably the first thing you want to do is check this fan, because you should be able to spin it, and it should keep going. This one does spin, but it's like something's impeding it. And what should be happening is that. So this thing should spin freely, at least for a couple seconds, and as you can see, that's not happening here. So we are going to go ahead and replace this fan, and I suspect that is the main issue. Now if it was something to do with the thermal paste, you've got a layer here, you've got a layer underneath here, which you'll see in just a second, and then there's a final layer between the APU and this metal piece. I'm not going to dig into that in this video. What you are going to want to do though is get underneath these wires here, Preferably with something non-conductive, but as long as you're careful and don't make contact with anything metal, you can kind of lift up and unplug the battery so we don't have any power running through here. Now this isn't a required step, but I like to get these little foam pads off clean if possible, so I'll add a little bit of 99% rubbing alcohol. Let that sit for a couple minutes and it should allow you to peel that off clean. In the meantime, we have 3 more silver screws here. Again, the same size as the ones that were on the outside panel, or on the metal panel. And these need to come out. And it looks like our screw finally fell out of the top. Okay, now here you're going to have some thermal paste underneath, so when you lift this up, you kind of feel that it's stuck a bit. I'm going to try to get this off clean, see if we get lucky. Not a huge deal, but I assume they put it there for a reason. Okay, so if you pick this up, we are going to have to take out our touchscreen controller. Let's go ahead and remove the game. 2 screws here and here. And we have 1 cable here we need to lift straight up. To unplug, 1 more screw over here. And if you want to, you can disconnect this cable, but flipping this over just like that will give us access to what we need. And that's going to be this screw right here. So I'm going to go ahead and take that out right now. And then there are 2 more here on the sides, but I'm going to get those in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and unlatch this little piece right over here. So just lift up from right to left. And from there you should be able to grab a hold of this cable and just slide it out. 2 more screws here and here. And if they don't come out all the way, that's alright, because we're just going to lift this out and remove these screws. But most of the time, when you get a new fan, it may not have these little rubber pieces, so we need to transfer these gray circles from there over to here. That'll keep the thing from bouncing around on the inside, and this is lots of fun to do. I assume they'll go in here. Ah, that's a different design. Okay, I'm not sure why this new style did away with those little slots there, but I'm going to use this one instead and take them off the old fan, and just if you kind of squeeze them together, you can get them right inside like that. And we are ready for installation. I'll go ahead and get the screws in. And as you might imagine, getting this thing back into position is the fun part. I do recommend you use some sort of magnification, unless you have much better than eyes than I do. So again, make sure that's opened. This is going to go right into here. When it's all the way in, just flip this back over. And that's it. From here we'll put it back together. Now I'd recommend you put at least one of these screws back in before you try to plug this connector in. And this one's a little tricky because just like the SD card slot reader, there's a bit of a crimp in this cable. So you can see there's a rectangle here printed on the outside that should help you line it up with where the connector is, but it's not going to fold over and go straight on. It's actually going to have to go up slightly towards the top. The key here is don't force it. It should be very easy to connect once you have it aligned. And I might actually have to reposition this thing so I can see what I'm doing, because from this angle it's very difficult. But if you have it lined up with the connector, it should pop right into place. And we've got this little cover, 2 screws at the top, And what I generally do is if there's any thermal paste that has been exposed while I'm working on this, I will add some. If you were taking this metal panel off, I would definitely clean off the APU with some rubbing alcohol, as well as the panel itself. But when it comes to the outer piece here, I don't think we need to be too concerned. As long as we have a sufficient amount and we don't have a bunch of dirt and debris or anything like that, it should be fine. So I'm going to add a bit of this Arctic Silver 5. Like I said, we won't need a ton, because we've already got some on here. I'll just put a little more. Get our heat pipe back in. And of course you want to make sure to reconnect your battery. I'm going to also add just a tiny bit of Arctic Silver here on the pipe itself on this side. Oh, not there. Actually, stuff really is all over the place anyways. So that'll be fine. Make sure you align this little peg right over here. And I may have to edit in this connection from another video because my microscope is offline at the moment. One of the trickier parts of this repair is probably this. It's just getting the SD card reader connected, because as you can see, it doesn't really line up necessarily with the pad that's on here. So if you don't fill up to this, I'd probably have someone else do it. But what I recommend you do is just peel this rubber adhesive off, or this foam adhesive off the back, and you'll notice again there's a bit of a crimp in this cable, and it's kind of hard to tell, but if you look at this side you can see this is where it's going to line up. So if you flip it over and very carefully, don't put a lot of pressure on these, it's super easy to damage the connector on the board. But when you have it lined up, it should very easily just pop right into place. And if not, you want to reposition it. Make sure you get that lined up so it sits nice and flat like that. And then over here, we want to make sure that we also have this thing aligned properly. Let's get our screw in. And then you can take this foam piece and put it right back on top. This is going to keep this thing from being disconnected, because as you can see, it's already kind of lifting up from this side. I don't know why they designed it this way, but you want this to sit nice and flat. Get this pad right on top, and then when we put the back panel on, that's going to put some pressure on this and keep it level. We need our plastic panel, and mine is missing a screw at the top, so if you have this one, you can go ahead and put that back in. Make sure everything's sitting nice and flush. I like to do the corner screws first, because that's what really holds this thing together. One very short Phillips screw, only one like it, will go right underneath the kickstand. And for this one we are going to do the two bottom screws, which still seem to work. And getting these seated can be a pain, because they don't like to stick to anything, so you might just want to place them first into roughly the right position. Even more fun to do when you're wearing rubber gloves. Alright, we'll test this, make sure everything's working, and you should be able to get back to gaming without the overheating problem.